to divorce his wife, Yamal quietly processed the papers at the Civil Affairs Office behind Elisa's back. But she didn't care at all. She didn't even bother to look at what that document was. And signed with total ease? Upon seeing it, Yamal's heart cooled completely. If only she had looked with a little more attention. She would have discovered that she was not signing a sales contract, but divorce papers. Unfortunately, all her attention was focused on Fernando, the handsome-faced man who had just walked through the door. Yamal felt a whirlwind inside him, gently squeezed the hand holding the folder, and turned around to leave the law firm. Yamal and Elisa had married in secret. Except for both sets of parents, no one knew they were husband and wife, not even Elisa's first love, and that secret marriage was also Elisa's decision. They had been classmates at the university, the first day of class. Yamal fell in love with Elisa, the beauty of the campus, at first sight. However, during the 4 years of university in which he courted her, she was never moved. After graduating, Jamal busied himself with work while Elisa continued studying, and they stopped seeing each other. Two parallel lines that seemed destined never to meet, they crossed unexpectedly 3 years later thanks to a blind date. In that encounter, Elisa directly asked Yamal if he intended to marry. Although he didn't understand why she was in such a hurry, he was happy thinking that his long-awaited desire was about to be fulfilled. He assumed Elisa's family was pressuring her, so he accepted without thinking twice. It wasn't until after they married that Jamal began to discover Elisa's secret. It's not that she didn't like men, but that in her heart there was already someone else. But she couldn't be with him. That young man was named Fernando, and he was the younger brother of her best friend. Fernando knew nothing of Elisa's hidden feelings, and just after graduating, he married his girlfriend of 3 years. That left Elisa very affected. To quickly forget the pain and avoid family pressure to marry, she decided to marry Yamal hastily. When he learned the truth, Yamal fell into a deep sadness, but finally decided to move forward. He thought there was still a long road ahead, and that if he persevered, Elisa would end up looking at him. However, during the 3 years of marriage, her attitude was never close. The final straw came when Jamal accidentally discovered a photo album with images of Fernando from 5 or 6 years old until 25, and that it even continued to be updated after the marriage. That made him unable to avoid feeling jealous. That night, Elisa, who never drank, arrived drunk, and in her normally cold eyes, an unusual joy shone. Jamal investigated and discovered that Fernando was about to get divorced. In that instant, he couldn't help but mock himself, and decided to put an end once and for all to that hopeless marriage. Upon arriving home, he observed the warm home that he himself had built, and memories flooded his mind. His gaze stopped at the wedding photo in the living room. Seeing Alicia's forced smile in the image, it was so painful for him that he took it down and threw it directly into the trash. That night, he dedicated himself to gathering his belongings for after the divorce. When Alicia returned, she immediately noticed that the wedding photo had disappeared and frowned. "Where is the wedding photo?" "The nail was loose. I was afraid it would fall, so I took it down." Elisa didn't ask more, put the box with dinner next to Yamal, and went to the study. Upon opening the bag, a strong, spicy smell hit his nose and made him uncomfortable. Jamal suffered from stomach problems and needed mild food, but his wife didn't even know it. Before, to please her, even if the food was very spicy, he would eat it all, but at that moment, he only wanted to go down and throw it in the trash. From today, he would throw away all the grudges, the sorrows, and also the person who had made him suffer. At 2 in the morning, Yamal still couldn't sleep. At that moment, a hand slid across his waist, accompanied by warm breath from behind. Yamal instinctively pulled away, avoiding Elisa's kiss. That gesture surprised her enormously. In 3 years of marriage, Jamal had always been the one who approached her. This time that it was finally she who took the initiative, she had been rejected. Unable to help it, she asked with some doubt, "Are you not feeling well? My stomach hurts a lot." "I want to rest." Jamal invented any excuse. Elisa didn't give it much importance, only responded with a, tucked the blanket around him, and prepared to sleep. Before turning off the light, she suddenly remembered the sales contract and asked, "Where's the property contract? Let me review it in case there is any error." Hearing her, Yamal's heart broke into 1,000 pieces, and he stammered, Do you really want to see it?" Elisa frowned slightly upon seeing the tension on her husband's face, but nodded softly. After a long silence, Jamal got up, went into the study, and took the contract. Just when he was about to hand it to her, the phone rang. Elisa answered immediately. "Sister Elisa, Sophia is drunk again and making a scene outside. Come quickly, I'm afraid." At the thought of Fernando's problematic ex-wife, Elisa's face changed instantly. She put on a coat and left hurriedly. Observing her hurried figure, Jamal shouted to her, "Is something happening with your little brother who is about to get divorced?" Elisa thought about explaining to him, but fearing that at those hours her husband would overthink the matter, she decided to exaggerate the situation. "Yes, his ex-wife is at the door with a knife. I have to take the bodyguards to see what's happening. If not, I fear a tragedy will occur." Jamal didn't try to hold her back, only told her, "Go carefully." After Elisa left, he didn't sleep a wink until morning. He took the phone to see the time and discovered that Fernando, whom he had added secretly 2 days before, had just published a new update in a video. The red sun rose slowly over the mountain range while cheers resounded around it. When the camera turned, Elisa's silhouette appeared. The text on the screen stopped on one phrase: "The night has passed. Everything will welcome a new beginning." Upon reading those words, Jamal's heart shrank, and a dull pain spread through his entire body. It seemed that Fernando had already divorced with the help of a lawyer as capable as Elisa, and knowing that she had loved him in secret for years. It was evident that upon hearing the word divorce, she would do everything possible to help him. Now that Fernando was single, surely it wouldn't be long before Elisa asked for a divorce to be with him. The divorce was going to come sooner or later. Jamal was only accelerating the process, preferring to leave of his own free will rather than be deceived. He put the phone aside, got up, and collected all the gifts they had given each other as a couple, putting them into a cardboard box that he took downstairs. When Elisa returned and saw him struggling with the boxes, she ran to help him. "Why are you throwing so many things away?" Jamal lowered his head and responded calmly, "They are no longer useful, so I'm throwing them away to make space." Elisa nodded and took the initiative to carry a lighter box. Jamal watched her back as she walked away with a serene gaze. In reality, just by opening the box, she would see that what he was about to throw away were treasures that he had deeply cherished. With her intelligence, she would surely understand that he planned to leave if she wanted to. There would still be an opportunity to change the story, but she did nothing. She simply threw the box into the container with indifference. That afternoon, Jamal's computer broke suddenly. To organize his documents quickly, he borrowed Elisa's laptop. While he was transferring the files, a new message appeared. He opened it instinctively and saw that it was from a colleague at the firm. "Elisa, there's a company party tonight. Are you going to bring your boyfriend?" After seeing that message, Jamal's hands began to tremble involuntarily. 3 years had passed since they married, and Elisa had never made their relationship public. So for others, she still had the image of a single woman. That's why when Jamal went to his wife's law firm to ask for advice, no one recognized him. This time, would she accept? Jamal didn't know, nor did he dare to have hope. Elisa was at his side, observing him closely, as if analyzing every expression on her husband's face. Noticing her gaze, Jamal smiled slightly. "Are you planning to take me to the party?" In other words, he was asking her if she wanted to make their relationship public or not. Elisa opened her mouth, but in the end said nothing. That moment of silence was like a sharp blade that drove directly into Jamal's heart. He repressed the pain, faking indifference. "Tonight, I also have things to do. Even if you wanted to take me, I couldn't go." Hearing him, Elisa's tense heart relaxed and her expression returned to normal. "Then next time there's an opportunity, I'll take you." Jamal didn't respond, only covered his eyes with his hand, thinking, pity there won't be a next time. That night, Elisa went alone to the party. As soon as she entered, several colleagues stopped her. 3 years have passed and you still don't bring your boyfriend? That's not right." At everyone's insistence, Elisa pulled out her phone and looked at 2 names. One was Fernando and the other Jamal. After hesitating a moment, she finally tapped on Fernando's photo and sent him a message. A while later, Fernando arrived at the indicated address. As soon as he entered, everyone's eyes lit up, and they didn't stop praising Elisa's good taste. After a few drinks, a lawyer named John got up to go to the bathroom, and meanwhile asked Elisa to deliver a folder to a man who was waiting for her downstairs. She accepted without a problem. On the way, curiosity led her to open the folder and take a look at the documents. As the recipient did not appear, she dialed the phone number that figured in the file and saw that it was already on her contact list. The word husband appeared on the screen, leaving her petrified. She took the agreement out of the envelope and was about to review it in detail when some car lights blinded her. Squinting her eyes, she saw Yamal. She showed him the document and questioned him. Asset division agreement after divorce? Yamal, what does this mean? Yamal was surprised for an instant at being discovered, but responded with calm. Joseph wants to get divorced. I only asked lawyer John to help him. Elisa's instinct told her there was something more. She frowned, ready to open the agreement, but a hand held her from behind. Sister Elisa, weren't you going to see a client? Why did you take so long? Seeing Fernando approaching, Elisa got nervous, unable to look at her husband or know how to explain herself. But Jamal was more serene than she imagined. He took the agreement from her hands, turned around, and said with a distant voice, "Thank you, lawyer Elisa. My friend and I are resolving a divorce. We won't take any more of your time." Back home, the image of Fernando next to Elisa repeated incessantly in Yamal's mind. Perhaps from having been hurt too many times, he no longer felt pain, only an infinite exhaustion. He rubbed his irritated eyes and, unintentionally, collided with a car that was reversing. After a loud blow, his leg was trapped in the deformed door, bleeding profusely. In the midst of the pain, he struggled to stay conscious and call emergency services. The doctor examined him and informed him that the wound did not put his life in danger, but required a small surgical intervention, in addition to contacting his family. Yamal's parents lived very far away, so he could only call Elisa. However, after dozens of consecutive calls, she still didn't answer. Yamal's master couldn't contact anyone, and the nurse who was nearby asked him, "Can your wife really not come?" Hearing this, Jamal shook his head with a quiet voice. "We are already divorced. There are only about 10 days left for it to finish." The nurse was very surprised by the situation, with amazement reflected on her face. "Aren't you still legally married? Call her to come and sign." Thinking about his 3 years of marriage, Jamal felt emotions flood him. To be able to have dinner with Elisa, he had waited until late at night, but the only thing he received was an "I have to work overtime, I'm not going home." To have a topic in common with her, he exerted himself in learning law, but only received her mockery. To cheer her up on her birthday, he prepared a surprise, but she responded, "I'm too tired, I don't feel like it." From the beginning until the end, only Jamal sustained the relationship. Everything proved that Elisa had never loved him. She wouldn't come, and he could no longer keep deceiving himself. A wife who doesn't answer when her husband suffers an accident, why would she come? The nurse sighed upon hearing him, looking at him with compassion. "Then call some friend of yours." In the following days, it was Joseph who took care of Yamal. A few days later, Elisa found out and went to the hospital. As soon as she entered the room and saw the wound on his ankle, her face showed a certain strangeness. "Why didn't you tell me you had an accident?" Jamal was about to explain himself, but upon raising his gaze and meeting her eyes, he remembered the more than 10 calls that she never answered. The words he was going to say got stuck in his throat, and instead he smiled with coldness. "You were busy, I didn't want to bother you for some unimportant injuries." Hearing him, Elisa felt some guilt and hurried to explain what had happened days before. "That day I ran into Fernando by chance." "Don't think poorly. Have you already finished Joseph's divorce?" It was the first time Jamal had asked her that question. Elisa was a bit surprised, but responded with sincerity. "Yes, I have already resolved everything for him." "Congratulations. I hope that with me everything goes well too." Elisa didn't understand what he was referring to, but before asking, her phone rang. After looking at who was calling, she hesitated an instant and went out into the hallway to answer. Half an hour later, upon returning, she saw the room door ajar and heard Yamal talking with his friend. "Yes, I only have to wait 15 more days to be completely free." Upon hearing the phrase asset division agreement, the words he had said before came to her mind. She burst in. "Divorce period? Who wants to get divorced?" Jamal didn't expect her to return, but luckily Joseph had just arrived. He composed himself and pointed. "Joseph, he wants to get divorced." Joseph understood and nodded. "That's right, I want to get divorced, and I'm doing the paperwork." Elisa was not very close to Joseph, although she had seen him a few times. She didn't know his family life. She frowned slightly. "If you wanted to get divorced, why didn't you ask me for help?" Joseph hesitated, not knowing what excuse to give, but Jamal intervened. "At that moment you were busy with Fernando's divorce. I didn't want to bother you." Hearing Fernando's name, Elisa became a bit tense and didn't ask anymore. "Then if in the future you need anything, let me know." Although he had hidden the truth well, Yamal did not feel relieved. With Elisa's professional instinct and sharpness, she would soon notice something strange. But as long as it involved Fernando, she lost all objectivity. They say that love makes people blind. Now Jamal understood it. While he watched her typing on her phone, he counted silently from 10 to 1, and as he expected, she stood up with an excuse. "I have work at the firm. When they give you the discharge, I'll come to pick you up." Jamal knew it was a lie, but he no longer cared. 5 days later, he received the discharge. He waited from morning until night, but Elisa never appeared. Upon opening social media, he saw a photo of Fernando on the beach. There was no need to ask where she was. He called Elisa, and the sound of the waves in the background drowned out any hope. She didn't notice anything and only said with indifference, "I'm on a business trip. Is something happening?" Evidently, she had forgotten her promise to go look for him. For her, Fernando was always the most important, and Jamal always the second option. Luckily, he had already woken up and would not keep waiting like a fool. He didn't unmask her, only said a few words and hung up. He took a taxi, and standing next to the road, he opened his calendar, counting the days that remained until the divorce. 10 days left, I will be completely free. Then, under the open sky and the vast earth, I will be alone and completely free. Upon returning home, Jamal wanted to accelerate the cleaning process. However, knowing that his leg was not yet fully healed and that moving was difficult for him, he called a full moving service. Large cardboard boxes filled the living room. Several employees went back and forth, busy collecting everything. Elisa arrived home. Seeing the chaos, she asked quickly what was happening. Jamal already had the answer prepared. The apartment in the west of the city is already ready. It is closer to your work, so we are going to move there for greater convenience. Thinking of the real estate contract she had signed before, Elisa nodded. After changing her shoes, she sat on the sofa while she imagined how she would organize the new apartment and spoke with her husband. "Don't you like to grow ornamental plants? Then we can put them on the balcony." "No." After a few seconds of silence, Jamal responded softly, "It's not necessary. I left that hobby a long time ago." Elisa looked unintentionally at the vase with fresh flowers on the table, feeling that he wasn't telling the truth. She wanted to persuade him more, but noticing that the boxes the employees were moving were almost all hers, she changed the subject unexpectedly. "Why are they all my things? Where are yours? They have already taken them all." Elisa believed that Jamal, he had already moved everything to the new house, so she didn't ask anymore. She got up to pour herself some water and asked the employees, "Please label all the boxes. Don't mix them in the rooms when they arrive." Jamal glanced at Lisa. His eyes moved slightly, but the words he wanted to say were swallowed within himself. Of course they won't make a mistake, because in the new house there are only things belonging to him. When everything was organized, Elisa helped Jamal down the stairs. Upon leaving the elevator, they unexpectedly encountered Fernando's sisters. The four stood frozen for a moment. Elisa didn't expect this situation. A flash of fear appeared in her eyes. She let go of Yamal's hand immediately and stood in front of Fernando. "How do you know the way here?" Fernando raised his eyebrows. "My sister wanted to come to your sister's new house to visit her. Since she had never gone, I asked my uncles for the address. I planned to give her a surprise." Fernando's gaze was fixed on Yamal. If he didn't remember correctly, he had seen this man at least twice, once in the lawyer's office, another in a bar. Curious to know who Jamal was, he smiled and asked Lisa, "Who is this man?" Lisa rarely remained silent. She seemed to be thinking how to present him. But Jamal kept his calm without showing emotion. He even reached out his hand amicably toward Fernando. "I'm Yamal, a university classmate of lawyer Elisa. I'm about to get divorced and I came to ask an old friend for help. I didn't expect her to be moving. What bad luck." That phrase made Elisa surprised. She looked at him with a bit of guilt and followed the introduction to connect everyone. On the outside it seemed normal, but Fernando felt that something was not right. However, with so many people around, it was not convenient to ask. He called his sister to help with the move and then approached Yamal to converse. "Yamal, why do you want to get divorced?" He didn't expect Fernando to be so direct. Yamal was a bit surprised, but smiled slightly. "My wife loves another man." Knowing that Yamal had a similar situation, Fernando felt empathy and told him softly, "I'm almost the same, but it doesn't matter. You just have to get divorced, everything will be better. Lisa will surely help you get over it." That's right, the hardest part was signing, but she really helped. Yamal nodded. "I heard she also helped with your case?" "Yes, Elisa helped me a lot." She gathered evidence to sue my ex-wife and protected my rights. Hearing this, Jamal stopped and suddenly asked something out of place. Do you like Elisa? Fernando was stunned, hesitated a moment, and responded vacantly. I don't know. At first I only saw her as an older sister. Since I was little, she took me for walks, took care of me, gave me gifts when I was bullied at school. She defended me when she found out I was getting divorced. She came to help me. Recently, my sister said that in reality, she has been in love with me in secret for a long time. She is a cold goddess, but unexpectedly, she can also love in silence. Even I don't understand why she loves me. Upon listening to Fernando tell those stories of the past with enthusiasm, Yamal's heart tightened with pain. From Fernando's words, he recognized in Elisa completely different from the initial impression. It turned out that Elisa's true nature was not cold, but rather that she simply didn't like him. It wasn't that Elisa was inactive in everything, but that he was not the person capable of awakening her motivation. Realizing too late, he had wasted many years for her, immersed in his memories. Fernando didn't notice the meaningful expression on Yamal's face. After this conversation, he considered Yamal a soul friend and gathered courage to ask what he had thought for a long time, although they had barely seen each other a few times. Yamal, what do you think of Elisa? Yamal perceived the intention behind the question, raised his gaze toward the house about to be empty, and responded sincerely. I have known Lisa for 10 years, but only recently have I realized that I really don't understand her, so about how she is, I fear it is difficult to answer. But there is something I am sure of. This is the first time I see her like someone so much. Fernando nodded thoughtfully, feeling somewhat relieved. Seeing that night was approaching, he took Yamal's hand and invited him to dine together. Coincidentally, Elisa came down and listened. She stood paralyzed, and on her face clearly appeared the expression of, I don't want to. Seeing it, Yamal simply smiled and rejected. Tonight I have work, another day it will be. Without giving Fernando's sisters time to react, Elisa quickly helped Yamal into the car. You guys go first, I'll take him and then catch up with you. The car started quickly. Elisa's heart beat fast, trying to find a reasonable explanation, but it was Yamal who broke the uncomfortable silence. There is no need to be like this. Hadn't we agreed before marrying to keep our relationship in secret from everyone except our parents until both are ready? I understand it now, you are not yet. Hearing that, Elisa's worried heart calmed down little by little. She breathed deeply and said with some gratitude, Thank you for understanding me. In reality, little by little, I am accepting the reality that we are married. Give me a little more time and I will make it public. Yamal nodded softly, looking out the window. 3 years of marriage without making it public, and now he would have to wait more? He no longer wanted to waste more time. During the way, Jamal remained in silence. Alicia noticed that lately her husband was downcast, but she didn't know the reason. She only thought that maybe from being busy with Fernando's affairs she had neglected him. A feeling of guilt invaded her, and for the first time she took the initiative. Our 3rd wedding anniversary is approaching, let's go on a trip. But with the divorce only a few days away, Jamal didn't want complications and used being busy as an excuse, proposing other ways to celebrate. Elisa suggested several ideas, but he rejected them all. That attitude was totally different from before, when just hearing the word date cheered him up. Seeing her doubt, Yamal proposed, That day is a weekend. Will you come with me to take a walk around the old school? Elisa didn't understand what he meant, but she nodded. At home, Yamal opened his calendar and saw 2 days in a row, September 7th, divorce, September 8th, wedding anniversary, which was also exactly the 10th anniversary of him loving Lisa. Such a special day. Returning to the place where everything began would also be a way to end, a final point for 10 years of youth. Thinking that, he smiled slightly and joked, This time you're not going to stand me up, right? Elisa laughed for the first time in a long time. When have I stood you up? Don't accuse me without reason. He didn't respond, only counted inside. The last time you left me alone in the hospital to go to the beach with Fernando. The time before you forgot the birthday dinner because you were busy collecting evidence for Fernando. Another time you left me in the outskirts to console Fernando. Time and again, whenever it concerns Fernando, she forgets all promises with me. Every morning, the first thing he did was tear a page off the calendar. September 8th had arrived. Early in the morning, Jamal cut his hair, put on an old white shirt he had bought years ago, took his camera, and went down ready to capture the last moment. Elisa was already waiting below. Yamal's mood was good. He told her stories of their times at the university. Both conversed and laughed. Upon arriving at the university entrance, Yamal got out of the car first. As he unbuckled the belt, Elisa's phone rang. A message from Fernando. "Elisa, are you free? I have a fever. Can you take me to the hospital?" Upon seeing those two words, fever, Elisa froze. Jamal looked at her and saw she still wasn't getting out. Noticing that doubt on her face, only a few seconds later, Elisa made a decision. "Yamal, something happened at the office. I have to go now." He, surprised, asked, "Can you go within an hour?" Inside, he knew she was lying, probably for Fernando. She insisted, "It's urgent. I can't delay." Jamal looked at her fixedly and nodded for her to go. Elisa put on her belt and promised, "Take a taxi home. When you finish, I'll take you back and then we'll invite the professor to dinner." Jamal didn't accept that promise. "Elisa, there won't be a next time." He stood still, watching how the car disappeared in the distance. Then he entered alone through the university gate, still with a camera in hand. In only half an hour, he traversed all the places linked to his youth and his secret love. After taking the photos, Jamal didn't stay wandering, but took a taxi direct to home. On social media, a red notification appeared. He clicked. While browsing, a photo of Fernando in the hospital appeared. In that moment, he was completely sure. Elisa was not working overtime as she had said, but taking care of Fernando. Remembering Elisa's emphatic tone before, Jamal smiled coldly. "For Fernando, you couldn't dedicate even half an hour to me?" "Elisa, if you knew that these are the last moments we are together, you would regret having stood me up once more." No one answered that question, and he didn't want to know the answer either. He only glanced at the screen, then opened the Salo app and looked for a message from lawyer John. "Today is the last day to finalize the divorce. Do I need to go to the office to sign something?" The response was quick. Lawyer John responded, "No, Yamal, the term is ended. All your divorce procedures are complete. Congratulations. You are free." That's right. From today, Jamal will never love Elisa again. He no longer needs her. From today, he will live a brilliant and grand life. There were 3 hours left for the final countdown. Jamal collected all the remaining belongings, then lay back alone on the sofa to contemplate the sunset. 2 hours left. He turned on the computer and edited the photos taken during the day into a video. 1 hour left. The video was ready. He reviewed it once more, then turned on the camera, pointed it at the monitor, and pressed record. He wanted to save a farewell letter for Elisa. Upon finishing, he inserted the memory card into the camera, took the divorce decree on the nightstand. "Elisa, from this moment on, we are officially divorced." He completed everything, took his suitcase, left that house, left the city without regrets, without looking back. On the other side, until Fernando improved, Elisa returned home. While driving, she called Yamal, trying to fulfill her promise, but more than 10 calls were turned off. The messages were not responded to. 3 years of marriage, and this was the first time that Elisa could not contact her husband. Remembering the previous accident, worried, she stepped on the accelerator. The new house was strangely tidy, but with only a glance, Elisa knew there was nothing left of Yamal. With her heart beating hard, she drove fast to the old house. She found it empty, looked everywhere until she entered the bedroom, where she saw a camera and a pile of documents on the nightstand. Remembering Yamal's enthusiasm with the camera days before, Elisa took a deep breath, pressed play, wanting to see what her husband had recorded. On the screen appeared a video with lively music, familiar landscapes within the university campus. Interspersed with words that appeared, "Elisa, the plaza is still full of students skating. I remember the first time I confessed my love to you here and you rejected me. The library is still full. I only dared to take a photo from afar because it was your favorite place. The basketball court we used to play, I was in silence watching you from there for 4 years." Each scene returned Elisa to her carefree youth from 6 years ago. Upon remembering Yamal pursuing her with patience, her mouth smiled unconsciously. The house was in silence, but the video still had 1 more minute. She thought it was a surprise he had left, but after some dark scenes, Yamal's face appeared. Red eyes, tired face. A bad feeling invaded her. "Elisa, this year marks 10 years since we met. 7 years of unrequited love. 3 years of marriage. Not 1 second did I stop wanting to enter your heart. But not loving is not loving. 3 more years, 7 years, or 10 years won't change the fact that you don't love me. Therefore, on this anniversary, I decided to abandon that stubbornness and wish you happiness along with Fernando. When you see this video, I want to announce to you, we are already divorced. A month ago I signed, you also signed. From today the two of us are free. Don't look for me, I wish you happiness. Each word resounded like thunder in Elisa's ears, leaving her paralyzed, with dilated pupils and trembling lips. What does it mean that we are already divorced? Since when did I sign the divorce? The camera she held in her hands fell with force, knocking over the pile of documents on the table and hitting her leg. The divorce agreement was exposed before her eyes. Elisa took it hurriedly, leafed with a sharp accent, fast until the last page, and immediately saw her signature. In the box on the left, a few centimeters away, there was a very familiar signature. It was his, clear, and decided. Elisa, in that instant, all the details that she had ignored returned suddenly. The fortuitous encounter in the lawyer's office when Jamal said he came for her to sign a real estate contract, but he came down from an upper floor. Lawyer John's office was on the second floor. Another time when Lawyer John asked her to deliver the asset division document, Jamal's gaze showed confusion upon seeing her appear. During the last month, every time she arrived home, she discovered that Jamal's things were disappearing little by little. Upon thinking about the distribution of her new home, she was almost sure that everything was part of his plan. He had lied to her perfectly. He had let her sign the divorce in secret, and then he left silently. Upon understanding the whole truth, Elisa was furious and scared at the same time. She took the agreement and the camera, ran down, drove to the lawyer's office, went straight up to the second floor and threw the divorce agreement on Lawyer John's table. This divorce is being handled by you, Lawyer John. Seeing her agitation, the lawyer put down his cup of tea, opened the file and said, yes, this case is mine. Is something happening? Elisa's anger reached the maximum and she lost her reason. Why didn't you inform me before about Jamal's case? Lawyer John appeared uncomfortable. It is the procedure already approved by the court. There is no problem whatsoever. Why would I have to inform you? And what concerns me, why didn't you tell me anything? Hearing this, Lawyer John was surprised and reviewed the last page to see the name of the wife. Elisa, you are Jamal's wife? I thought you were still single. Quickly he changed his expression. I didn't know Jamal was your husband. Aren't you still single? Those words were a bucket of cold water that extinguished Elisa's anger. Reason returned, she realized what she had just done, and quickly apologized. Lawyer John didn't hold a grudge and asked sincerely, but Elisa was anxious to find Jamal. She didn't want to give more explanations. Lawyer John, later I will tell you everything. Could you give me Jamal's contact? I have lost communication with him and you are his legal representative. Surely you know it. Lawyer John shook his head. You also work in this field. Revealing client information is illegal. Don't complicate my life. He is your husband. Think well and you will find a way to contact him. Don't worry, he is emotionally stable and nothing will happen to him. But he had misjudged the situation. Although they were married 3 years, Elisa didn't know Jamal's family or friends, contacts, nor did she even know where he came from. She couldn't communicate with him at all. In the end, she could only write a letter for Lawyer John to deliver to him. That night, he informed her that Jamal received the letter, but did not respond. Elisa tried to open Solo to send him a message, but saw that his avatar had turned gray. The account had been canceled. After the divorce, can he really cut all contact to that point? On the other side, after leaving the city, Jamal arrived at the train station. He chose a destination at random and bought a high-speed train ticket. It was his first trip after the divorce. In a single day, from north to south, the temperature rose notably and the air became humid. Unlike the fast pace of the north, this small city had a quiet and slow air. After leaving his luggage at the hotel, he began to wander aimlessly. He ordered a bowl of noodles and sat in the middle of the bustling street, drank a sip of cold water, and felt how his body and mind relaxed suddenly. Tin! The phone rang! In the contact list of Solo, which barely had a few, he opened it to see there were 2 messages from Lawyer John. Jamal had already guessed that Elisa would be angry, but it surprised him that she would write him a letter. He opened the attached file and his gaze stopped immediately at the quantity of words. 8,000 words. My God, it's only a divorce, why write so much? With high spirits from having been freed from the marriage, he didn't want to read it, thinking that. He closed the file and also deactivated the notifications, then continued enjoying his bowl of hot noodles that had just been brought. After eating, Jamal wandered alone through the night market, the tension in his heart dissipating with every snack he ate. That night back at the hotel, he thanked Lawyer John and sent a document back. When Elisa received the message, her worry finally calmed down. She opened it with high expectations but was immediately struck. Too long? I'm not reading it? We are already divorced, don't bother me. Only 2 short phrases, but they were like a wave that swept away the little calm she had recovered. She wrote a long message immediately, but remembering the too long from the other party, she deleted it with frustration. With her patience running out, she finally threw the phone onto the bed, sat on the floor, and closed her eyes, exhausted. In the midst of her confusion, the images from the video returned to her mind. She took the camera on the table, skipped to the end, saw it over and over, and finally stopped at the image of Fernando, in exactly 36 hours after Jamal left. Elisa finally understood the reason for his divorce. Did he already know about the matter between her and Fernando from before? That idea appeared suddenly, and Elisa's heart stopped. An unprecedented anxiety took hold of her chest. She grabbed her head, trying to remember and search for where she had made a mistake. The memories followed one after another, and stopped on the day of the family matters, when Fernando and Jamal seemed to have spent time alone. But thinking about it, well, that day was only the 9th day of the separation. Even if Jamal had discovered something by chance, he couldn't deduce it so fast. Recalling what happened yesterday, Elisa's face turned pale immediately. After knowing that Jamal had accidentally seen the photo album, she couldn't sleep all night. Throughout the whole night, her mind went over and over everything that had happened throughout the years. If more than 10 years ago, she always pursued Fernando. 3 years after he got married, she learned to let him go. From the moment Fernando got married, she decided that from then on, she would only consider him as a younger brother. As for Jamal, who was pursuing her, Elisa at first only saw him as a friend. Perhaps because both carried inside the pain of not being able to be with the person they loved, she always felt guilty toward him. That guilt lasted many years until 3 years ago when they met again. From the first look, she realized that Jamal still couldn't let her go. That's why for a long time, pressured to marry, Elisa only thought of one thing. Should she listen to her parents and be with a stranger arranged by them, or accept Jamal and give him a chance? Finally, she thought that if she married him, at least he wouldn't have to suffer like she did when she was young. Elisa believed that fulfilling his desire would help calm the desperation of not having the love she wanted. But back then, she didn't know that obtaining something you don't desire is sometimes harder to accept than not having it. And sacrifice is not a simple thing either. On one side was the abyss of lost pain. On the other, the strength of the marriage that awaited her. She ran between both, feeling torn, almost collapsed. Elisa proposed a secret marriage, and Jamal accepted without hesitation. Elisa married in a confused state, without knowing how to forget someone, nor how to build a marriage. 3 years after marrying, she and Fernando had little contact, only seeing each other occasionally at parties with friends. The photos together she kept carefully in an album. In the repetitive daily routine, she learned to let go of the obstinacy. But letting go is not easy. The habit of years made her gaze unconsciously stop on Fernando, and her emotions moved easily because of him, especially after knowing he had divorced. She desired for him to come out of the suffering and start a new life. That's why she helped him sincerely, even though it was someone she loved deeply, even though she knew there was no possibility of being together, she hoped he would have a quiet life. All of this was only Elisa's thought. She never said it out loud. They say that unrequited love is a story for only one, and she believed she had hidden it very well. But she forgot that Jamal also loved her in secret, so he easily saw her feelings. Only after losing him did she realize that she had been discovered long ago. When the truth came to light, her anger was not only because of the deceptive divorce, but because he judged her, as if condemning her to death without listening to her. She was angry because he left without saying goodbye, cutting all contact without giving her an opportunity to explain herself. She was angry with herself for not noticing the signs sooner, for always ignoring him, for not fulfilling her role as a wife, and above all, for not realizing sooner the place that Jamal had in her heart. 3 years, more than 1,000 days and nights living together, she had become accustomed to having him by her side. Although Fernando divorced, she never thought of divorcing Jamal. From the day she took the marriage certificate, she decided she would walk with him until the end of her life. On the 3rd day after Jamal left, Alicia tried everything to contact him, but she couldn't. Time passed, and her worry grew. Fernando had looked for her many times, but she always refused. That's why when he came and saw her deteriorated appearance, he got scared with a look full of worry. "Sister Elisa, what's wrong?" At that moment, seeing Fernando in front of her, Elisa's feelings were very complex. She had transformed her love for him into family affection. But she hadn't had the opportunity to tell him. But after Jamal left due to a misunderstanding about her relationship with Fernando, she couldn't delay it anymore and had to find the opportunity to explain clearly. "Fernando, lately I've been trying to contact Yamal." "Yamal? What's wrong with him?" Seeing Fernando's tense expression, Elisa felt even more ashamed. "He disappeared, I can't find him." "Eh? Why did he disappear? Was it because of the divorce? Does it have to do with his ex-wife?" "Yes, it was. Because of the divorce, it has to do with his ex-wife? Or rather with me, Fernando." He got confused, incomprehension reflected on his face. Elisa gathered courage and confessed, "I am Yamal's ex-wife. We married 3 years ago, and I had hidden it from you all this time. I'm sorry, Fernando." That news was like a strong blow. It left Fernando paralyzed. It turned out that those strange sensations that had caught his attention were not illusions. But even so, he couldn't accept it, he shouted, questioning, "Why hide it? Is that fair for Yamal?" Elisa remained in silence. Without knowing how to explain her complex feelings, the silence only made Fernando more upset. He remembered the recent conversation with Yamal and felt very guilty and regretful. If he had known before that Yamal's wife was Elisa, he would have erased all those inappropriate thoughts and wouldn't even have mentioned them in front of him. Thinking that, unintentionally, he became the cause that accelerated the breakup of the marriage? Although it was without intention, Fernando still felt pain. "The person to whom you should apologize is not me, but Yamal. I know, but after the divorce he disappeared. I can't find him." Hearing this, Fernando understood that Yamal had already given up completely. He felt even more uncomfortable because no one understood Yamal better than him. No one can disappear completely. If you can't contact him, it only means that he never really mattered to you. That phrase touched Elisa's black heart, and it hurt deeply. She lowered her head with contained tears. "The fault has been mine in these 3 years. I didn't pay attention to his efforts and feelings." Fernando didn't say more. He turned around and left with heavy steps. Seeing his figure move away, Elisa's pain and regret grew even more. Everything that happened until today was her fault, but it also involved 2 innocent people, which made her feel very ashamed and regretful. 7 days after Jamal left, Elisa had almost reached the limit. Standing on the edge of desperation, little by little she began to regain clarity. Although the term to resolve the divorce had ended, the procedures had not yet been completed. Whether to obtain the divorce certificate or to initiate a trial, Yamal had to return. After reflecting deeply on this, Elisa pulled herself together after a long period of dejection. She asked to end her vacation and return to the lawyer's office, and the first thing she did was look for Lawyer John. During the previous days, Lawyer John had sent innumerable messages to Yamal in her name, but seeing her haggard and thin appearance, he couldn't help but feel pity. Just when he was going to say some words of consolation, she spoke first with a now calm tone. "Lawyer John, please tell him that I agreed to the divorce, that he should return to do the certificate." Hearing this, Lawyer John almost spat out the tea he was drinking. "You already agree? You don't want to try one more time? After all, you have been husband and wife for 3 years. He refuses to contact me. What else can I do? I can only let him get what he wants. Do we really want to take this to the courts?" Lawyer John sighed, shook his head helplessly. "Okay, I'll let Yamal know. Elisa, don't get too sad." Elisa didn't say anything more and returned to her office. She leaned back in the chair, her body tense for a long time finally relaxed a little, while she continued thinking about the next steps to take. In reality, she had no intention of divorcing. Saying that to Lawyer John was only an excuse to see Jamal. As long as he returned, she would have the opportunity to explain to him. He had loved her for 10 years. Only by erasing all the misunderstandings, perhaps there was still an opportunity to start over. When Lawyer John sent the message, Jamal was sunbathing on the beach. For more than a week, he had visited 2 or 3 cities and had completely forgotten the worries of the divorce. Upon seeing that Elisa accepted the divorce, he felt a slight suspicion inside him. In these days she had been bothering him. Why does she accept so fast now? Is she plotting something to deceive him? To make sure, Jamal asked Lawyer John about the following process and learned that both husband and wife had to go personally to do the divorce paperwork. Otherwise, they would have to go to trial. "He only wants to divorce. Why is it so complicated?" It seems he will have to postpone his travel plan. Jamal sighed, put on his sunglasses and returned to the hotel, starting to pack his things. At 1 in the morning the following day, he was sitting on the plane heading north